Welcome into the D2 Baseball Podcast. Robert Fry here today, joined with Shaine Carpenter, the newest head coach at Lake Erie. Coach, how are we doing today?
Doing phenomenal, man. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. And so we'll start there. Talk a little bit about your background and what led you to end up becoming the Lake Erie head coach.
Yeah, man. Ultimately, was a Division II player at two Division II institutions, St. Anselm College and then Mercy College. Then now Mercy University. Ended up coaching at two different Division II institutions at Emmanuel College, then Emmanuel University, and the University of Bridgeport. So, man, I've been in Division II for 10 of my 13 years in college baseball, and ultimately have never wanted to leave it. Left it for a brief stint to go down to Washington College with Coach Fiala into the D3 realm, but man, I'm super excited to be back in Division II. I firmly believe it's the best division that college athletics has to offer. And all of those decisions kind of led me to interview and get the job and, be here for a couple months. And I'm really excited about the future.
And so, with that experience in Division II, how does that help you prepare for now a head coaching role in Division II?
Ultimately, you're leaning on a lot of great experiences with great coaches. I'm leaning on a lot of guys that I worked for, or just the standard that I wanted the program to be set for as an 18 to 22-year-old, knowing that all I wanted out of my head coach was somebody that was willing to clock in, go to work, go learn, and go do everything that I wanted to do and make myself the best baseball player that I could be. And just wanted a head coach that kind of valued that out of every single one of his athletes and kind of made that his main mission. And, having my first job be with Jeff Kilgore down at Emmanuel College was an absolute eye-opening experience for me. Guy's an absolute weapon. One of the best guys that I've ever met in this business, one of the best at doing it, in my opinion. And to kind of walk in, get some legitimacy and have his logo on my chest. And as I try to figure some stuff out, man, he's an absolute, he's a guy that I learned so much from and still to this day have so much anchored to him and what he taught me.
And so, within that too, entering year one as head coach, kind of what were your initial impressions of the baseball program and Lake Erie College itself?
Yeah, a super tight-knit team, a program that ultimately has had a ton of turnover, and to give some structure and some rigidity to that is kind of the main goal that I wanted to kind of interview on and some of my main goals moving forward of just giving these kids who, essentially across the campus, we have one 80 by 20 foot cage. And essentially that's all that they own. That's all that they can stamp as theirs on this campus. Right. And we share with softball and a couple other sports, but trying to give these kids that are just absolute grinders, absolute kids that love it, just like that love ball. And ultimately that was one of the things that I was the most excited about, and having my conversations with everybody that returned from the coaching change is just like, man, these kids love it. They get after it. And to me, that's like a perfect Division II mindset where it's a little gritty, it's a little grindy, it's a little got to be super creative with some things that we do. And these kids have been doing it and just expected, somebody to help them and, the expectation that somebody cares and is somebody that, can help them get where they want to go is all they wanted. So I'm happy to make sure that, I definitely can be that for them, in the future as we move forward.
And, you mentioned, that turnover. You were hired on officially, according to the team website, June 17th. And, you had basically just build a roster from the ground up. What were some challenges in building that roster once you got onto campus as the head coach?
Yeah, ultimately. One of the challenges is you're moving from Maryland to Ohio, 8 hours away. I have a toddler, a 3-year-old daughter. My wife, who was like 6, 7 months pregnant at the time with our second child. So having to sell a house and move to Ohio is its own challenge in and of itself. And, when I took over, I think I had 21 committed returners. And ultimately we brought in another 21. We ended up retaining about 6 or 7 of our 25s that obviously committed to the previous staff, yet, again, stay true to their commitment here. We brought in 13 or 14 junior college and transfer portal players. Ultimately, man, there was a ton of challenges. There was a ton of work that we had to go do, yet as challenging as it was as simple as that. I'm of the opinion that no human being controls my fate. So the only thing that I can go do is walk in the office every single morning, clock in and go to work for my guys and help them at every point and in every capacity that I possibly can. So it was going to grab, as many kids as we could that could help us win. And we really believe that we did a really good job in that, with the transfers that we got, the junior college players that we got. We're really excited about the future in it. But we're just getting started really on our 26s and have a couple commitments and starting to move forward on it. But ultimately, it kind of delayed our progress on 26. So just a mountain that we had to climb, and now we're staring at another mountain and getting with 26s. So ultimately, I'm here for it and I'm ready for it. And that's ultimately the only expectation that I had was that I was going to go work and work myself to the bone for these guys.
And so, within the recruiting, what do you look for now in your programs at Lake Erie College from a recruiting perspective?
Yeah, no, that's an awesome question. So for me, man, I truly love what I get to do. Like, man, the fact that I get paid to do this is wild. I walk into the office every single morning with like 40 ounces of Starbucks in my hands, ready to go attack the day. So like ultimately, if you kind of come through our campus and you hear me talk about what we have and what we do and how we maximize the space and energy that we have and how we're efficient with everything that we do, like that either excites you or it doesn't. And I really mean that. Like there are a lot of great baseball players that are going to walk through these halls that, aren't essentially excited about how fervently we attack development and essentially how much we maximize our space, time, and energy. I walk every single one of our guys that we have on campus, and I walk them into the weight room. And I'm a 5-year strength coach as well in college baseball, and it's like, if you don't like to lift, don't come here. That's not an attack on you. That's not a bad thing. Like if you get your lifting done, but you don't love it, like that's great, man. But you're just not for this program. You're just not about what we're about, and what's going to be such a staple, such an anchoring, such the spine of our team culture moving forward. Because I've never had a kid that loves to lift, that doesn't hit extra, that loves to lift, that doesn't love development or can't take coaching or all those things, man. Like I love those kids that buy into that weight room. Again, for me, it was a massive part of myself as a player. I still wake up every single morning. The first thing I do when I get in here is I go lift. It's still a value of mine now as a person. So like one of these things that I said it earlier in the interview, but like, man, I just want kids that love ball. Yeah, I just want kids that love it. And, wherever they're at on that talent scale, like I'll get them to to wherever they can be. Like I'll take them to that. If that love, that care, that aspiration, that intensity, and that just overall general focused on what we're doing and, kind of maximizing our time and energy. Like if that's something that excites a kid, that kid excites me, if that makes sense.
And so, to branch off of that too, now recruiting, now, with fall getting underway, what are some, big priorities that you are, putting into place at the Lake Erie program?
Just a ton of structure to everything that we do. Inherently having not having our own facility, and playing a classic auto ballpark, phenomenal ballpark, but just really difficult to program every single days. And inherently, there are a lot of days that were different than the others, and I understand the limitations of it. But just to give some structure of like, hey, we have a turf field out behind our AEC, so we're going to get a ton of work on that. Infielders, outfielders, we have our cage that's paired right next to it. We're going to have our sprint work here. We're going to always have our offensive portions here. We're always going to have our defensive portions there. We're going to go and we're going to operate as essentially efficiently as we can on our campus, and maximizing that time is something that I'm really, really dead set on, and giving our kids some structure and some rigidity to, hey, what does practice look like? They show up, they know exactly what practice is going to look like every single day. They might have a different segment every single day or a different, portion to their practice to open it up, but they know they're going to do three main things. And like, the bulk of our practice is going to be spent on developing the individual and what we do, and just giving a ton of structure to that. So they know, hey, I get out of class at 2:50. I know I have X amount of time to get to this, or to get to this ballpark that we play out of this ballpark that we practice at. And I know exactly what I need to go do, set up, get to the field, whatever that may go be, just to give them a ton of structure to it. And there's inherently there's a ton of limitations to the program, or I should say the team, in years past. So like, there's no blame or shade being passed anywhere. I do genuinely very much mean that. Just the one thing that I wanted to anchor home was like, hey, we have what we have. This is how we're going to use it. This is how your day-to-day is going to go. Here's how our, Thursdays through Saturdays go. And just try to give these kids some scheduling to just anchor everything else that they need to go do as a student, and as a person around our campus. give them some structure to what it looks like, essentially.
And you mentioned, the ballpark you're playing at. How exciting is it to be able to play at a field where you're sharing it with an affiliate of a major league organization?
It's such a weapon. I can't downplay it. I mean, we bring every single one of our tours. Is we start them on the athletic side of our campus. We walk them through campus. Admission takes them for a little bit, and then when they wrap up, we go have that conversation about, hey, where this individual fits in our program. And um, we start talking about like the more individualized approaches to what that player could be for us, and we do that overlooking that ballpark. We do that sitting in, right behind home plate in the hedges, like on lawn chairs as we overlook the field, and it's such a beautiful place to play. Ultimately, not having a facility of our own, it's its own challenge in and of its sense. Where, hey, there are a lot of ballparks that are closer than Classic Auto, but ultimately, in my opinion, none of them are worth the talent in our program that is going to stand upon that field. That's kind of one of my biggest things moving forward is finding our practice facilities and finding game facilities that are worth the talent that is going to go play on that, right? Like, I think it's really, really hard to evaluate an infielder when there's more rock on the infield than there is the infield material, or it's just a surface that is sub the quality of our player. And the GMAC is one of the best Division II conferences in the country. It's fraught with talent. I mean, there's a ton of draft talent within it. Obviously, you saw the players that left our program and went into a different kind of realm in college baseball. That's what's so common without the GMAC. So for me, it's an absolute just an incredible experience for our guys to go play in Classic Auto, 6,000 stadium, 70-foot video board, like just a really, really cool facility, just really well maintained again, because it is one of those ballparks that's 30 organizations where we know all those logos take care and invest in their players in. The fact that we get to rent it, play on it, have our guys work down that mound, have our guys dig into that box is just, and it's a special facility for sure.
And speaking of special, you had the opportunity to bring on Brent McNeil, a known, pitching coach at the Division I level. What's the impact of having him on your staff?
Invaluable. I can go for 5 minutes. I can go for 2 minutes. It doesn't like how much time we got, brother. Man, it was the easiest decision in the world to name him my associate head coach. That guy's a wealth of knowledge. He's taught me so much within the first, 2 months that we've been a part of it. A guy that I have the utmost trust in, a guy that has, just so much on his resume. And again, knowing just what we want to go do and build moving forward. Just a guy that I'm so thankful to have on my staff and ultimately, help me go about creating this to be what I want it to be and what we want it to be ultimately. And a guy that is just, reinventing our pitching staff, every second of the day that he's there, and just giving a ton of wealth to our guys of knowledge and experience. It's just, man, he's a special dude, and I'm really excited to have him on. And every day, man, every day he's proven his worth.
And so with you and the coaching staff, what is kind of your overarching goals in terms of, approaching individual player development, especially when there might be some pushback because it's a new system from maybe guys who have been here previously?
I think when you anchor everything to like, hey, what's the best for, what's the best for this individual athlete? And then how do we go about that? So every single one of our hitters is going to, we have 22 hitters. We're going to have 22 different offensive philosophies. We're going to have 22 different offensive correctives and feels and basically processes for them to go be better hitters. We got deer, buffalo, and baby bison and how we break it up, because our center fielder and our first baseman are going to do different things on a field. They should be held to different standards. We should have different base running standards due to what they do, right? Maximizing what we can essentially achieve from both of those positions. And also, there's linebackers and there's cornerbacks. They look differently. They train differently. They have different job descriptions. Knowing our guys that can run it up into the low to mid 90s kind of come the season are going to have different pitching philosophies than our guys that are going to spin it, live off changeups and live off breaking stuff. I mean, ultimately we're trying to get outs, and on the pitching side of it, there's a million ways to get outs, and we're trying to build repertoires that play to shapes and profiles and pronators and supernators of what we do on the mound. The same way that offensively, man, I'm going to have bigger dudes that run well. I'm going to have smaller dudes that run well, bigger dudes that hit baseballs to the wall. For me, it's how do you get yourself to second base? And we're going to have 22 different ways to get ourselves to second base as best as we possibly can. anchoring everything to, hey man, what is making you the best hitter? Hey man, what is making you the most vital guy to go get outs? Ultimately the development comes easy on that side of it, or I should say easier, because we like everything is anchored towards, hey man, I'm not trying to change you. I'm trying to make you what is the best version of yourself. And McNeil sees it that way. And it was kind of one of those early questions I asked in his interview where it's like, yeah, man, this dude's special. This guy's different. I even asked him, I was like, what's your, if I played you 10 times, what would I have to say about your pitching staff? And he goes, well, it depends who pitched. Like, perfect. Everything is situational in baseball. Timmy and Jimmy are going to have different stuff. They're going to have different out pitches. They're going to have different command of different stuff. Like, we're trying to win that day, and everything's going to be anchored to how do we win that day? And, I feel the same way offensively. I want to beat you different ways, and I want to be prepared to be able to do so. So I'm going to have different guys that do different things, and those guys are going to have different values and different processes to develop and get better at what makes them the best version of themselves, not just some version of a good baseball player.
And to kind of continue on that offensive side, what's your involvement in terms of the offense? I know, with a smaller staff, head coaches got to get a little bit creative, but how involved are you in terms of offense, as a whole, while also being the head coach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every day. So we have we'll have indies and we'll have individual hitting times throughout the entirety of the fall, man. And it's like, yesterday's a great example. We had 3 hours of indies. I ended up having a visit in the middle of it, went by and oversaw a lift for a second just to see what our guys were doing it. And then we had a 2-hour practice. So it's like, I spend more, I understand the aspect of the more you go in coaching and the higher up you go, the less coaching you actually do. And I'm going to strive as long as I possibly can to buck that system and to be in the cages with our guys every single day. Our cages are right behind me. So I got zero excuse, man. I can fill out some paperwork later in the day, man. I can get here earlier and get that done. But when our guys are hitting, I want to be right there with them. Like we'll have our delay camera sitting right between our cage that we'll kind of split down the middle and maximize our reps. And I'm staring at that TV screen with our guys for 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day, whatever it is. And I'm with them every single day. I'm with all of our defenders at every point in time. We'll just have a system where kind of they come through me, they go and get some extra swings, they go do some sprint, some change of direction work with our with our grad assistant, and then they kind of wrap back up with me defensively. So, I handle them every day. We touch them every day. And I see them every single day. And ultimately, I'm never going to leave that system.
And so, with that leading of the system comes leadership. What's the impact of leadership in your program, not just from a coach's standpoint, from a player standpoint as well?
Yeah, we had a couple really key guys really early on anchor themselves to come back, and I'm super thankful for those guys. There's no question about it. I think that if one or two of them, continue to leave, it would have been harder. We would have returned less. And not only that, but we would have lost a ton of our culture. Would have lost a ton of the anchors that kind of kept this team together and kept the bulk of this group that returned because of those guys returning. So, there's no question we have some veteran leadership that came back, and I'm really thankful for it. And, ultimately leaning on a ton of those guys to not only in the pitching side of it, but the offensive side of it, to like, hey man, we're bringing in a lot of new guys. It's welcoming in, but let's also make sure that they understand what the standard of what we do is. And ultimately that was a ton of conversations over this summer with a ton of those returners being like, hey, like we had an awesome opportunity to get inundated and get collected really, really fast, because we had 6 off-campus rooms in 2 different houses that, we had guys leave and essentially, they signed leases. So I wanted to make sure that those families were taken care of. Ultimately, I wanted to make sure of the guys that were returning, that their rents didn't go up, that your utilities didn't get up, that essentially they signed the lease for X amount of money every single month. That's what their family could afford. That's what they could afford. I wanted to make sure that we could keep it that way. So we ended up filling six rooms across 2 houses. And both of those houses are 50 old and 50 new. You know what I mean? Like 3 new rooms, 3 old rooms, right? So we got together really, really quickly, and we kind of molded our culture and kind of melded together really, really quickly, just because of living situations and dorming situations, and essentially being 50% new and 50% old. I think ultimately everybody that came back is educating our new guys, and our new guys are essentially coming in to help and play, large roles really, really quickly. So I think it's just like perfect little, kind of synergistic aspect of our team.
And so, speaking of aspects of your team, you mentioned some of those things, but it's also good to know, from a Lake Erie fan perspective, from a fan of Division II baseball, or people that might become interested in Lake Erie, what should those people expect from the Lake Erie program come the spring?
Yeah, we're gonna go compete. I'm a big fan of being a competitor. Ultimately, that's I think everything in baseball. I think we kind of match that with some fundamentals and some techniques. Ultimately, I want kids that want to go out there and compete, give everything they have to this, work their ever living tail off, and then go show it on Fridays and Saturdays. I think the expectation that every single second of the day, every single pitch, we're going to compete with everything that we have. That's the only expectation I have of my players. And ultimately, I'm such a process-based coach where everything to me, I really don't coach the result. I really don't care about the result ultimately at the end of the day, because I understand that the result takes an aspect that we can't control. Every single one of my hitters can only control what they do up until barrel meets ball. After that, man, they're at the mercy of the 7 guys standing behind the pitcher, the umpire, and result essentially is something that they can't control. We can control the process. So the process is our guys are going to be as prepared as they possibly can be. The process is going to be that they're going to be worked as hard as they possibly can. They're going to be trained as accurately as they possibly can. And the only standard I'll ever have for them is go compete with everything that I have and have an utter adherence to their process. And the moment that we fail as a coaching staff is when we force our guys outside of that process that makes them ultimately the most successful that they possibly can be without coaching to result. And just when, again, like I said, the only time that we'll lose is if we lose our process.
And the final question I have for you, Coach, is, getting to where you are today, who are some people that have impacted to be able to get this opportunity now to say that you're a head coach of a Division II baseball program?
Yeah, it was the only goal I had. Getting into this business, it was just like, hey man, let's like get working, just work to earn your own ship. And ultimately now I'm kind of overseeing my own ship. And I just go and I look back to every person that, I was a part of and every person that gave me an opportunity. And there's a question that Jeff Kilgore down in Emmanuel took a Division II catcher and made him into, I think, a person that I'm really proud of being when I walked out of that program and coaching for him for 2.5 years. Taught me a lot about baseball, taught me a lot about programming, but ultimately taught me a lot about what it looks like. What does a head coach look like? How does he operate? How does he hold himself to? What are the standards he holds himself to? How can he essentially impose that on his players because he's going to basically walk that walk, right? It's great if you talk it. Ultimately, man, he's a guy that showed me that, hey, walking it every single second of the day is so vital. Man, I had one goal when I worked for him, which was try to work harder than him every single day. Because ultimately, my first 2 years there, I spent more time with a shovel in my hand than I did a fungo because we built our cages, we built a retaining wall, we redid our coaching office. Man, like just a guy that taught me, nobody's going to care about your program as much as you do. Don't expect anything from everybody. Go work for it all. And that's kind of a big standard of mine moving forward. Like, was there for 2.5 years, and then Joseph Sinelli over at the University of Bridgeport trusted me to take over his offense and defense, and was there for 2.5 years. A year and a half, 2 seasons, and we had a ton of success offensively there. And ultimately, had to leave Division II because I was a part-time assistant baseball coach working 3 separate jobs. I was up at 4 to go cut grass until 11 at a private golf course. Drove from 11 to 12 to the University of Bridgeport. Practice planned, had practice from 2 to like 4 to 8. I was in a facility working to kind of afford, being able to be a college coach. And, during my timeline there, we had, me and my wife welcomed in our daughter. So I had a really kind of difficult choice. Do I, leave the house at 4 and come back at 9 and basically never see my child, or do I leave college baseball? And then ultimately within that moment, I'd interviewed for like 5 or 6 full-time assistant jobs and took every single one of them to the finals and didn't get it. And then ultimately Tom Fiala at Washington College comes in real late in the process, like September, I want to say. I interviewed for him, gave me an opportunity to be a full-time baseball coach, was there for 3 years. Like, so thankful for him in, everything that he allowed me to do and just allowed me to be a full-time baseball coach and take care of my daughter, which was, massive for me. And I'm so thankful for those 3 guys in my college experience. I really don't think I've coached for, a coach that I, didn't like or didn't appreciate or didn't respect. Every single one of those guys is such a massive part of my own success, and somebody that, had I not had one of them at any point in time, I don't know if I'm here. Somebody that I'm just so thankful for. And going all the way back, man, I played for an absolute stud in high school, and in the Shepherd family in Jersey. You're looking at like some of the best baseball knowledge that you can get in Mike Shepherd the second, a really good family friend of mine, a guy that I grew up going to lessons with, camps with, a bunch of stuff. His son Mike Shepherd third and I were very close in years, and kind of as we developed. Rob is at the University of Seton Hall now, has been there for a while. Just a guy that, again, is on my resume, a guy that I trust, a guy that I call every now and again to just get some advice from. And then playing for the middle one, John, at Morristown Beer, just again, another guy that I look back to and just like, man, I learned so much baseball and then so much about what it looks like to kind of run a really well-run program, to kind of walk the walk and be who you want to be. Man, I've played for really, really great guys. I've played for really, really awesome individuals. I've coached for some really, really awesome guys. I don't, everything that you said, it's all because of them and how much I'm rooted in what they taught me from a very early age, very early coaching aspects. And now being able to take over this program, it's off the backs of every lesson I learned from every single one of those individuals.
And Coach Carpenter, really appreciate you taking out the time to chat with us and talk about, what to look forward to in the Lake Erie program, and wish you nothing but the best of luck coming up in 2026.
Appreciate you, man.
And that is Shaine Carpenter, head coach at Lake Erie College. We'd like to give a big thank you to all of our regional tier Patreon members. We couldn't make it to the ninth inning without the support of all of you. You're the real MVPs, hitting a home run for the team every single time. Thank you.